Showers across parts of Scotland and even a bit of rain pushing into the far west too, but elsewhere something a bit drier, perhaps even a bit brighter at times, and there's something a bit brighter to come early next week, but further rain arriving from the west. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening. The M62 is slow towards Hull. There are emergency repairs happening and an oil spill to clear following an accident where 3 lorries were involved before the M18 at junction 35. The other way, towards Manchester from Huddersfield, a queue at 20 Rochdale where there's been an accident. Slow here, 21 Milne Row. The M6 Cheshire, this is queuing northbound. There's been an accident. Thelwall Viaduct. 2 lanes are shut before 21 at Woolston. The M1 is still closed in Bedfordshire on the northbound side. 10 Luton Airport to 11 at Dunstable. The A13 is shut east of London. That's Rainham area both ways with queues between Barking and Purfleet. And if you're travelling east Sussex, Brighton to Port Slade, there's a queue where the A27 Southwick Tunnel is still shut. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16 along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, and tonight on the show we have the comms director of the Institute of Economic Affairs, Reem Ibrahim. He's back, the Notting Hill nuisance, Matthew Stadlin. Also got the former world champion darts player Keith Deller, and doctor and DNA expert Arma Khan. But first, let's go to the news.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines at 7 o'clock. JD Vance has warned Britain and the EU over what he claimed was backsliding free speech and democracy. Addressing the Munich Security Conference, the US Vice President suggested there's been a retreat of fundamental values in Europe. Vance also praised Munich's hospitality despite the city reeling from yesterday's car attack that left 30 injured. A 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker responsible has been arrested and is due in court. Vance warned that the biggest threat facing the West is not external, but the threat from within.
I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
In other news, an NHS children's surgeon has been suspended after 9 surgeries fell below expected standards. A review was commissioned in October after colleagues raised concerns about the doctor. The review was completed in January and looked at the number of complex paediatric hip surgery cases performed at Aidensbrook Hospital over 2.5 years. Now, it may be Valentine's Day, but love is not in the air for Bolt, Uber and Addison Lee drivers who are striking today, causing travel chaos across the UK. Thousands of drivers are logging off during peak hours today in a campaign for better pay and working conditions. The strike action is taking place across the country from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. tonight. And Meghan Markle has released a new image of her and Prince Harry together on Valentine's Day. It comes just hours after the Prince and Princess of Wales shared their first ever Valentine's Day post. William is seen kissing Kate on the cheek as they sit in a wooded area. The image taken from a video released last year when she ended cancer treatment. The couple shared it on their official X account with a heart emoji. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm Lee Anderson, the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield, and joining me tonight on the show, she's back, the very lovely Reem Ibrahim of the Institute of Economic Affairs, and GB News' favourite Matthew Stadler. He's back to lock horns tonight. So look, guys, this week we've seen more nonsense coming from that madhouse that I work at, and we've seen a decision where a judge is allowing a Gazan family to claim to come to this country through the Ukrainian scheme. This is madness, surely, Reem.
Yeah, it's absolutely madness, and it is effectively, as Suella Braverman said, human rights gone wrong. I mean, basically what's happened is they've allowed the scheme that's already being used for Ukrainians, and there are a couple of different schemes that we currently have for specific asylum claims. So, for example, for Ukrainians, we've got a couple of schemes for Hong Kong, people from Hong Kong, and indeed a small number of those Ukrainians themselves. The fact that a Palestinian has been able to claim on this scheme, claim asylum on this scheme, just shows that the scheme itself doesn't work. But what I thought was particularly interesting is Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, and her strategy towards attempting to criticise Keir Starmer for this policy. Now, Keir Starmer was wrong when he said at Prime Minister's questions that this was a policy that was allowed under the last Conservative government. However, when she asked him about the scheme, he said, I'll look into it. We'll try and close the loophole, to be fair to him. And she continued to berate him on the exact same topic, not moving on and just entirely unable to move on to those particular questions. So I think what's interesting here is the scheme itself is entirely wrong and absolutely needs to be fixed. And the human rights element of it, that conversation needs to happen. But also, if we get an answer from government, we should be able to look into that and scrutinise it specifically.
OK, guys, so just have a look at this clip from GB News earlier this week, what Suella Braverman had to say on the subject.
Well, it's an egregious example of human rights gone wrong. And this case is a very bad decision, and it presents very terrible consequences potentially for our immigration system. The basis upon which this judge has reached his conclusion is flawed, and it represents a constitutional abomination, frankly, a great and bad example of judicial overreach.
So, Matthew, obviously I tend to agree a little bit with what Reem has to say and what Suella had to say.
I thought you were entirely neutral.
Well, listen, but you can have an opinion, Matthew. I'm sure you have on this subject.
If you've got an opinion, I'm not neutral. What do I think about this? Starmer has been quite clear that this loophole will be closed. Quite how it is closed isn't so clear. My understanding is that he was wrong, as Reem says, to say that this was allowed, this claim, under the Tory government.
Yeah.
The claim was rejected while the Tories were still in power.
Yes.
And when Labour came into power, it was allowed on appeal. That doesn't mean it's because there was a Labour government. So if there is a loophole, which there seems to be, or the judges interpreted it as such, it appears, then that is a legacy of the previous government. But on the substance of it, clearly it seems to me that the Ukraine scheme should not be able to be used by asylum seekers from other countries. I mean, it is the Ukraine scheme.
Surely
but there is another question, and Starmer's clear about that as well. But there is another question, and that is, we've all seen the utter devastation that has befallen Gaza. And some people will blame Israel, some people will blame Hamas, some people might blame both. I would blame both. What we do know is the extent of the human suffering there. Unbelievable numbers of children simply ripped out of their homes with nowhere to go. Are you guys saying that we should take no Palestinian refugees at all? Why do we take Ukrainian refugees? Why do we take people from Hong Kong? Why would we not take some people, from Palestine?
Matthew, those are entirely different issues. I mean, Hong Kong, I think, is an entirely different issue to Ukraine.
It is.
Ukraine is obviously a war in Europe, so there is a strategic interest here.
And hold on a minute, Reem, just to clarify this, Matthew, we took women and children from Ukraine to keep them safe.
Not fighting aged men.
Why
Exactly.
do you keep talking about fighting aged men?
Because
you know the rhetoric. You know what that's doing. That is trying to sow the seeds of fear.
It's not about the rhetoric. It's about fundamentally, women and children are much more vulnerable than fighting aged men.
Why are you calling them fighting aged men? Why not working aged men?
I'll tell you what, the clues in the title, Matthew.
Are you suggesting they're coming over here to fight?
Well, the clues in the title, fighting age men should stay in their own country and fight.
Are you saying that Palestinians should be fighting Israel? Sorry, all right, let me ask you the question. I've got to be allowed to ask the question. Are you both suggesting that Palestinians should be fighting Israel?
Hold on.
No, that's the question. What's the answer, Rick? What's the answer?
The point is, they are already fighting the Israeli government.
Hamas are fighting Israel. Are you suggesting that men in Palestine should be fighting Israel?
Matthew, what you're fundamentally misunderstanding is that you're talking about the language that I'm using and saying that that's somehow some kind of negative rhetoric.
Yeah.
It's not inflammatory because there's a war going on, so they are fighting. That's literally what that means. This is insane.
Hamas is fighting. Hamas is fighting. Are you suggesting that Palestinians should be fighting Israel?
Matthew, this is not. Ultimately, what you're saying is entirely irrelevant. You're pulling up all the language around fighting or working age. Whatever the fact, they are much less vulnerable than women and children who we have taken in from Ukraine. I also like to make the point that even Egypt and Jordan don't want to take people from Gaza.
Why is that?
In those countries. Because I'm Middle Eastern, right? And I will be very, very honest here. I think what is happening is that a lot of Middle Eastern countries view people in Gaza as though they are effectively travellers, they are effectively criminals, they are effectively, and whether rightly or wrongly, these people have been sheltered. They have had much less education than the average person in the Middle East. Yeah. And it means that they just can't cope. I mean, Egypt, I'm half Egyptian. In Egypt, they have a huge population crisis. Cairo is literally, there's so many people there, they've had to build a whole new city to try and alleviate the population pressures. These countries cannot take these people, and they're just saying no, and they are bordering these areas.
Sorry, where do you think they should be? Where do you think they should leave? Do you think they should be ethnically cleansed, like Trump suggests, or should they live in Gaza? And if they live in Gaza, where are they going to live at the moment if they haven't got any houses?
Okay,
answer my question, guys. You've had a long turn. Answer my question. If you don't want men, that's your view. Do you think we should take Palestinian women and children, some, as refugees into this country?
I do. I think we should do our bit. But ultimately, we've taken so many refugees from so many different wars over the last few years. I think we need to have a conversation about what's right for Britain as well. And look, we have been a very, very welcoming and open country. And look at where it has led us. I think we need to have a balance here. I'm not saying we shouldn't take any Palestinians. What I am saying is we need to have an open conversation about where it goes right and where it goes wrong. And these people, we have no idea what their criminal backgrounds are. We have no idea where they've come from specifically. And we have no idea if they've committed crimes in the past. We also have no idea if they are themselves Hamas members. So we have to have these conversations and be very clear. We have to do what's right for Britain, and then we can start worrying about the rest of the world.
Well, let me just put this one to Matthew. I'm sure he'll agree with me on this one, Reem. Donald Trump's come up with a suggestion, which was quite interesting, about 10 days ago, about actually taking over the Strip and moving people out and making it into a go-to destination. Is that ethnic cleansing, Matthew, or a sensible solution?
Yeah, I think it's ethnic cleansing, and I think it's despicable as a consequence. The idea that Donald Trump is wading in with his massive boots and trying to treat this age-old problem, or certainly decades-old problem. Some would argue centuries-old problem. Treat it as a real estate deal. That's absolutely unacceptable. What they should do, I'm answering the question. What they should do is rebuild Gaza, and if it takes some of our cash to do that, we should.
20 years' time.
Well, it shouldn't have been bombed down in the first place. Far too many people died.
To be fair,
far too many people were killed by the Israeli state as a consequence of the barbarism of October the 7th. None of this is that difficult to understand. But the idea that they should be simply ethnically cleansed is absolutely offensive.
So to be fair, I don't agree with the ethnic cleansing description, but I do think that Trump's perspective on the Gaza issue was quite insane, to be honest. I don't think it's feasible. It's also interesting that in the same week, Elon Musk is saying we're going to cut all foreign aid spending. Trump is saying we're going to spend all this American taxpayer money in Gaza. I don't think it was ever a feasible solution. I think it was him basically being friendly to Netanyahu. So I don't think we should take that seriously. I think there's also the fundamental point here. What's happened in Israel and in Palestine is absolutely horrendous, but it's been going on for so long. Yep. I don't think that foreign taxpayer money should be spent in the area itself. What should happen is the two-state solution be respected. That can't happen as long as Hamas exists.
Exactly.
It can't happen as long as Hamas have control over Gaza. And we've seen what's happened this week.
How do you get rid of Hamas then? How do you get rid of these evil? How do you get rid of this evil? Because the idea that you can beat Hamas through military means has been tested to destruction. 90%, isn't it, of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have been displaced, and Hamas still turn up with their guns. They still turn up with their masks, parading female hostages. They are a cancer on that region. Yeah. Have we been able to destroy them? Has Israel been able to destroy them?
So, Reem, we are in agreement now. Matthew he says that Hamas are to blame. They are to blame.
Partly to blame.
Causing all the problems.
The Israeli government was heavy-handed to go in there and displace so many children and women, and by the way, some innocent men.
So I'm sympathetic to that view. I think it's really important that there is that balance there. But you have to be honest. If a foreign country, came and invaded British shores, or did what Hamas did on October 7th,
we'd expect
we wouldn't just do what Israel did. We would drop a nuclear bomb.
No, we wouldn't drop. But this is insanity. This is political insanity. To suggest that Britain would have dropped a nuclear bomb.
Matthew, I'm using hyperbole here. What I am saying is that we would absolutely have gone harder and faster than what Israel had.
We certainly would not.
Yes, we would have. I'm sorry, but Matthew, if what happened on October 7th happened in the UK, we would have gone in and we would have used all of our military force in order to ensure that Hamas had been destroyed entirely.
We would not have done what has happened to the Gaza Strip.
Israel are held up to a standard that other countries are not.
It could be argued, Reem, that during the last war we did much worse in bombing Germany. It was relentless. We flattened cities.
We hurt civilians.
Yeah, we killed tens of thousands.
And we should have a jolly good debate about that part of our history.
Unfortunately, it's part of war. And if that didn't happen, then we'd all be speaking German right now.
Exactly. So thank you. Another feisty debate. But coming up next, we're going back in the day with darts legend Keith Deller.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Lauren, let's start with this, shall we? How children's TV may be harming, not helping young minds.
Yeah, so this is an article in the Express today, a big double-page spread as a result of some new research in a new book that's coming out by a child psychologist, saying that children's television, and I think perhaps more importantly, the way that children consume television and video product now is perhaps not as healthy for them as we would hope it would be, and there's quite some distance from children's television of the past, of the sort of the Bagpuss and Clangers and Ivor the Engine era. And I think what's interesting about this is particularly the how children's television is consumed angle, because children are now put in front of screens significantly more often than they were, certainly when I think we were growing up. The content that they are consuming is not great for their brains and their learning and development, which Floella Benjamin of children's television fame is now leading a big crusade to say that some of this is really, really bad for children.
These days, they're not watching the TV that we all watched when we were growing up. They're not even watching GB News in the morning.
What are they thinking?
Would you believe it? But they are watching this absolute drivel all day long on YouTube, and because obviously all our TVs are now connected to the internet, or they're getting TikTok on their TV. It's not even, so they don't even necessarily have to have smartphones or iPads. They can just watch this stuff on TV, and it is rubbish. They are watching it and they're obsessed with it. Oh God, Skibbity Toilet or something. Have you heard of this?
No.
No? Well, you'll have viewers who have got who are parents of sort of 13-year-olds, and this Skibbity Toilet thing is, they're all obsessed with it, and this is a really annoying sort of theme tune or thing that they sing at you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World. He's back on my show for the second time. Keith Deller, former world champion. Let me shake your hand. And actually, he's bought me a gift this time. He's bought me a set of new darts, which will be, I'll be lobbing these at my dartboard next week in, well, I'm not going to tell you where, it's a secret location in Westminster.
So you don't beat me.
Well, it was a close call last time, Keith. But I remember last time we spoke, something I tell my mates when I've had a few, when their names dropping in my local pub, about all these famous people I've met on this show. I tell them a story about when you won the World Championship and you didn't really have a big bet on yourself, did you? What price was you and what could you have won?
I was 100 to 1.
Wow.
But the thing was that what Jockey and Eric said after I beat them, that the public didn't know who I was. I'd already gone to America, won the Los Angeles Open that got me a playoff, and I beat Bob Anderson, Bobby George, John Lowe on the way. So the players know that I was a really good dart player, but the public didn't. And in my local estate in Ipswich, the Chantry Estate, the local pub, they all went on £20, which was decent money then. And the bookies didn't think I was in. They didn't lay it off either. So
really?
They took a hammering. And the funny thing about it was Peter Purvis, who was the Blue Peter presenter.
I'm the Green Cross code man.
Correct.
Yeah.
When I turned up at the venue, I mean, I was playing for London at the time, Lee, with the likes of Eric Bristow, so you were very confident. Yeah. And there was a qualification brought in. So when I won the Los Angeles Open, they said, right, you got a playoff in London to win 3 games. And I think I was 9-0, 9-1, 9-0.
Wow.
Got to the venue, and I think when I got there, because it was the first time on TV, I'm either going to be nervous, but I couldn't wait to get on TV.
Yeah, wow.
And Peter Purvis said, I hear you're a very good qualifier. I said, I'm better than that, I'm world champion.
Well, we know how darts have changed over the years. It's gone from, a load of old fat blokes with big bellies out here and the fag on and a big pint pot. And the darts have changed. I mean, look at these darts you brought me in today, and thank you for that, Keith. These are really slim. I don't know what sort of steel or metal they're made out of, but back in the day, they did have a big, brass barrel and feathers on the flights. I mean, how do you cope with them?
Well, I played a gentleman called Eddie Brown, and he was the 61 News of the World champion. That was before the World Championships. and he's always used. He was a farmer. He used feather darts, and he tried to come with the current times, and he used a feather flight with a tungsten dart because obviously they're tungsten 90% normally, and it was still he couldn't get used to it because he was used to the old brass dart. But it just changed. I mean now, my favourite player before I won was John Lowe.
Yeah, so my neck of the woods.
And his darts are bulky.
Yeah.
I just wish that had been Eric Bristow because they were thinner and longer, and I might have won more tournaments. But
yeah, I used to love watching John Lowe back in the day. I think he was the first to do the 9-darter, weren't he?
Against me as well.
Was that against you?
It was, 1984, and it was the World Match Play, and John never looked like missing. I mean, when he went 180, he went treble 17, treble 18, double 18. So when he hit the treble 17, I just went like that.
Yeah.
Don't shout out, let him have a go at it. And he hit it. And then 3 months later at the World Championships, I played John in the quarterfinals. I went 180, treble 20. And in those days, Lee, they used to put pins to light up so people could see where the darts
I remember that, yeah.
And they lit the treble 15 up and all the crowd are going, go on, but it weren't in. And that would have been the first one. I'd love to have said, thanks, John.
So last year, as well as all your success in darts, Keith, last year you got an MBE.
Yes.
What was that for?
I think over the years, Lee, I've always felt that, I've had a fantastic life through being world champion and, going around the world playing darts. So a lot of promotions I've done, we've tried to raise money, and I think it's nearly $750,000 for breast cancer.
Wow.
And when I was doing shows for up north, Bass, they used to do 2 pubs a night.
Yeah, Bass Brewery.
Yeah, and we did. We got 4 guide dogs for the blind. So I always think whenever I do a show, we can raise some money. It's going to help someone, and it was nice to be.
It's funny, because I said at one of our conferences last year that this country of ours, great country of ours, has been a gift to the world. We've given this world so much stuff, whether it be the Industrial Revolution, technology, computers, sports, culture. I mean, darts is one of those things that started in this country, and it's now exported all around the world, isn't it?
It's such a worldwide sport. I mean, they play darts now, the PDC, they have the World Series at Madison Square Gardens.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the stage now, they've got to go to the big arena. Darts is massive.
Yeah.
I think we've been lucky in our sport that we had Eric Bristow, to me, that made darts.
He did, yeah.
I mean, Eric was so cocky, but he backed it up and won. Then you moved on to the likes of Michael Van Goen. Michael then... Phil Taylor. Phil Taylor, to me, has been the greatest dart player ever. He just took darts to another level. Then you had like Michael Van Goen, and now we've got the young Luke Littler, and darts is just going through the roof. And as I said, anywhere around the world, they just fill the arenas.
So, I mean, there must have been some strange, obscure countries you've been to around the world to play darts. What's the strangest been? Where you actually think, well, I don't see how these people can be interested in darts, but you get there and they're absolutely mad for it.
Well, we played in Finland once, in Turku, and it was like minus 20 degrees, and the snow was up this high. And I always remember, we thought, why are we going there? But there was like 1,000 people playing in the tournament, and we were thinking, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Phil Taylor won it, and then when he come out, there was 5 of us waiting with snowballs. Might have been a few alcohol drinks in there, but we made sure we got him. The next minute, but he chased us. He didn't get me. I've been played in Australia, America, all over the world, Hong Kong. So it's great because I'd have never seen any of them countries leave. It wasn't through darts.
Yeah.
So, and darts now, as you say, every country wants to get involved.
Well, you've been on a wonderful journey, Keith. You did speak briefly earlier about Luke Littler, who's actually, he's taken it to a different level now, isn't he? Because people all of a sudden are engaged again. They're watching this young kid, 17, 18-year-old, whatever he is absolutely smashing the dart scene, isn't he?
Correct, and to be world champion as well. To lose in the final, then come back and win. And there's so many youngsters. There's grown-ups with Luke Littler shirts on. That's how, but the youngsters there, Luke, at the moment, everyone loves him. If he keeps winning the next 2 years, all of a sudden that will change because that's what happens. The players, at first of all, had all the love for him, but if he keeps beating them up, then I'm afraid that won't happen. So, but he's done so much for us.
It's great, though, because there'll be young kids looking at him now, both boys and girls, looking at him thinking, I want to do some of that. I could earn a few quid doing that, surely.
Well, it's like a 12-year-old lad. He was playing on this online tournament, and he went 145 out, treble 20, treble 15, double 20. He kicked in 180, And they spoke to him and he said, yeah, I'll be in the Premier League by 16. And this is, I mean, I think, Lee, there's 8-year-old children hitting 9 darts, perfect games. I only had one in my life, and that was I always remember, the Dover Inn at Salford.
Well, and that's all down to practice and determination.
It is as well. I mean, the dartboard is the treble's a fifth bigger than what we played on.
Now, stop making excuses.
I'm afraid that's the truth. That is the truth.
So, future, what does the future hold for you?
Just carrying on. I mean, I'm 65 now, and I just feel that...
Ready for your bus pass? 2 years for your bus pass?
I ain't been on a bus yet.
Oh, dear.
No, I'm afraid. I'd rather walk if I have to.
Okay.
But no, at the end of the day, I love doing what I do, playing tournaments and travelling the world still, and still promote.
Well, the last time you was on the show, you actually beat me and went first to the board, didn't you? Which is no surprise there, but Keith, it's great to see you again. That's Keith Deller, a former BDO world champion and darting legend. Coming up next, we've got right versus left.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're looking to escape the cold weather in the UK and find some winter sun, it will be fine in Spain this weekend, but rather unsettled through much of Italy and Greece, an area of low pressure, and the Burao wind for Croatia continues to blow very strong, particularly towards the north. Meanwhile, much more settled weather, above average temperatures and plenty of sunshine through the Balearics, Spain as well, but an area of rain is going to push into Portugal, and that's going to likely affect parts of the Canaries next few days.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Good evening, I'm here with your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Through this weekend, I think Sunday's going to be the drier of the 2 days. That's because many of us are going to have some fairly wet weather pushing through as we go through tomorrow due to a frontal system that's already brought rain across parts of southwest England, Wales and Northern Ireland so far today, and it's going to continue to progress northeastwards overnight. That being said, not really reaching the far north of Scotland or the southeast, where it's going to stay largely dry. With the rain, it is going to be quite heavy at times across parts of Wales and the southwest, but as well as this, we do have the risk of some sleet, some snow, even a bit of freezing rain. Temperatures to start the night are going to drop where we get some clear skies, so a touch of frost early on, but then it's going to turn a bit milder with some cloudier, wetter, milder weather pushing its way in. Taking a closer look first thing tomorrow morning across the southeast, largely dry but quite cloudy here, wetter further west, also quite a bit of rain across parts of Wales, northern England, and do watch out for some snow and some freezing rain leading to some icy patches if you're heading out tomorrow as well. Across Northern Ireland, the heaviest rain will have cleared through, and across Scotland, a bit of a west-east split across western parts, largely dry by around 8-9 o'clock, and there will be some glimmers of sunshine, but in the east it's cloudier with some outbreaks of rain, sleet and hill snow continuing. Then through the day we have a fairly wet picture across this kind of central slice of the country. To the far south, avoiding this, in fact, across the southwest, things turning brighter later on, and further north-northwest, some glimmers of sunshine across some parts of Scotland. Temperatures are turning a bit milder from the west, but where you're stuck under the cloud with the rain, it is going to feel pretty chilly. Into Sunday, and it's a drier day, not totally dry. There will be some outbreaks of mostly light rain coming in from the east, some wintry showers across parts of Scotland, and even a bit of rain pushing into the far west too. But elsewhere, something a bit drier, perhaps even a bit brighter at times. And there's something a bit brighter to come early next week, but further rain arriving from the west. Bye-bye.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, and it's time for Right versus Left with Reem Ibrahim and our very own favourite Matthew Stadland. Thanks, guys, once again. More madness. The lunatics have taken over the asylum. We've seen this week the new health minister, public health minister for this Labour government. She said a few years back that it was okay for people to identify as a llama. So here's what I had to say this week in the Commons, and just check out West Streeting's answer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, the new health minister has stated that it's okay for a human being to present as a llama. So what I want to know is, if I have a family member who presents as a llama, suddenly becomes ill in the middle of the night, do they send for a doctor, a vet, or a straitjacket?
Mr. Speaker, I can just say to the honourable member that my honourable friend, the Minister for Public Health, believes in treating every human being with the dignity and respect they deserve, even the honourable gentleman.
So, guys, Matthew Stadland, you're somebody that's identified as a journalist. Whether we believe you or not is another thing, but you seem to get away with it. What do you think to this Llama-gate nonsense? It's not the yes or no quiz, by the way.
I think that if you actually identify as a llama, then you need to have mental health support. And I don't think we should be making fun of people who require mental health support.
Oh, come on, Matthew. It's ridiculous.
Insane. I think it's absolutely insane, it's ridiculous, and we should point out for what it is. I think all of this, we shouldn't make fun of them. No, I think sometimes a bit of bullying is actually character building.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you want the whole country or the political
If you
establishment to
say
pile
you
on to an individual, and a bit of bullying is a good thing.
Challenging.
Listen, either the
No, I mean bullying.
Either the person
Here we
who
go.
identifies as a llama is joking, in which case there's no
what
story,
if
because
it-
I've never met anyone who identifies as a llama, and I meet
Matthew,
a
there
lot
are
of people every
stories
day.
of kids in schools identifying as cats.
I don't think that's real.
That's a result of rhetoric that the left have been pushing.
Hang on. If someone actually thinks that they're a llama, we should be treating them as this MP says,
Can I ask you
this
a
government
question?
minister
Can I ask
says,
you a question,
with
Matthew?
respect and dignity. Obviously, we shouldn't encourage it. They should get mental health support. Come on.
I
This is a
don't
non-story.
respect
This is
anybody that
there are
identifies
serious issues about identification. I'm not in favour
Right.
of self-ID, but I am in favour of treating people with respect and dignity. And where there is a genuine clash
Is it
between the
helpful?
rights of trans people
Is
and
it-
women,
Problem is-
they should be taken
No.
seriously.
Right, is it helpful when a health minister says it's okay to identify as a llama?
Absolutely not helpful, and this is the point, right? What they're doing is making a joke of what gender actually is, and I think that it's an attack on womanhood. I think that the entire transgender nonsense is effectively an attack on what it means to be a woman. Now, I am a libertarian. I have no issue with people, adults, doing whatever they want to do without government support. However, the public health minister saying that somebody should be able to identify as a llama is insane. The fact that as a person, you can transition, have your genuine medical transition on the National Health Service, so taxpayers can pay for it, is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the most egregious wastes of taxpayer money.
I think that's a disgusting thing to say. There are people. You've talked about this whole transgender nonsense, right?
Yes.
No,
Because I personally don't agree with
I think it was right that the self-ID thing was stood up to, because I don't think Lee and I should be able to effectively put our hands up and say we're women
And
walk into women's
bathroom.
toilets, right?
And I'll say this, by
Let me
the
finish
way.
my point. But that doesn't mean you throw into that, in a nasty bullying way, with the language that you've used, people who are genuinely trans. Those people deserve
But Matthew, the
support.
public health minister has.
Can people?
The public health minister, the newly appointed public health
This was,
minister,
by the way, 8 years
has,
ago or something.
Has
It's
said,
far.
it doesn't matter how
I'm just making the
long ago.
point.
Andrew Gwynn lost his job over messages 5 years ago, so neither it makes a difference. The point is, what you are saying is that I am including all of those people in the same category. I'm saying the public health minister
You have just done
has.
that.
I have, because the public health
Doesn't mean
minister
you should.
has included people who identify as llamas
Let's reduce the
in the same
aggressive tone, guys. And we saw in the clip how West Streeting sort of dismissed my question. And I've seen Matthew twitching earlier. You're not getting some sort of trans llama feelings, are you, Matthew? Do you think you could transition into a llama?
Look, I am...
Is it possible?
I am a bloke. I'm a man. And I'm not about to say that I'm a llama. I'm not about to...
But do you know
I'm sorry. I'm not...
Even you think this is funny.
Well, obviously, I'm not going to say I'm a llama.
So you're laughing? That's bullying.
No,
That is bullying.
no,
That's
I'm not
bullying.
laughing at the person, if there is a person who thinks they're a llama, because as I've said, they deserve support. The story is absurd. Obviously, it's absurd. You asked me when
And this is our
I was
public
about to
health
get
minister.
trans llama twitching. I mean, do I look like a llama? Do I look like a llama?
Well, that's questionable, Matthew. But
I
actually,
think we'll let viewers decide.
in the clip, Reem, Wes Streeting, when he responded to me in the House, he said that everybody, and he sort of suggested llamas as well, should be treated with the utmost of respect.
No,
Yeah,
this is
I
nonsense.
don't respect anybody that claims that they are a llama. In the same way, I don't respect anybody that claims that they're a cat. I use the cat example because it's a genuine, real example where children.
I don't think that was a real story.
Matthew,
to use your word, I think it was nonsense.
Well, I've got
it's
a better one than that.
Go on.
There was a school in Yorkshire. I'm not going to name the area because it'll embarrass my friend who's an ex-MP in Yorkshire. But there was a child identifying as a donkey.
But let me finish. I mean, come on, Matthew.
No, when I was at school, I wanted to be a cowboy or an Indian or a soldier. That's what we would run around the playground with our machine guns, acting silly.
It's a bit unlikely that you were going to be a cowboy or an Indian. Sorry, do you want to be clear about this?
When Lee was a child, we were very, very clear about this. When you were playing pretend, you knew that it was pretend. Unfortunately, as a result of the rhetoric and this is rhetoric that has been pushed by the left, then you can identify...
The left?
By
I
many,
haven't pushed that
fine,
rhetoric.
the public health minister, the Labour public health minister that this is being pushed by, that you can identify as whatever you want. This is the result. It's children that are confused.
So, let me be clear. Can I be clear? Let me be clear one more time.
Matthew's going to be clear. Matthew's going to be clear.
If I want to call myself a llama, I could call myself a llama. I don't get llama rights.
Free country.
Yeah, I don't get llama rights, okay? So I don't get the veterinary services, as you suggest.
Or a straitjacket.
What if I actually think I'm a llama? I hope that my friends will persuade me to get mental health support. There are serious issues.
Have they not already done that?
I have had mental health support in the past. The most important, there are lots of important things here. One here, mental health issues are serious and shouldn't be mocked or made fun of. Two, some people are genuinely trans, and hang on, and they should get proper support and medical help. Should men, as I repeat, should men be able to put their hands up and say, I'm a woman? No, because that clashes with women's rights and has serious repercussions, such as that it would entitle Lee and I to
what about llamas' rights? What about llamas' rights?
This is the point. The public health minister thinks that llamas' rights are the same as you described them, transgender rights.
I don't think she really thinks that. I hope she doesn't.
Well, that's what she said. And when Lee, in the chamber, actually asked the health minister, Wes Streeting, about this, he was entirely dismissed. I think there's a secondary point here. Do you think
he was making a joke? He was asking whether someone who identifies as a llama should be entitled to veterinary services.
Because the new public health minister has said that.
It was a joke.
With a serious point.
The serious point is...
The public health minister is
serious point is we are spending 10 minutes on national television debating whether people can be identified as llamas.
Because the public health minister seems to think that they can. That's the point, Matthew.
So we're going to do the yes or no quiz now, guys. Now, he's a stickler for this, but I think we've ruffled his fur a little bit because he is...
My alpaca fur.
His alpaca fur, we've ruffled that a little bit, so he's twitching a bit, and I think I might give him a carrot at the end of the show. You know the rules, guys. It's 5 questions.
I had so many carrots when I was 2 or 3, so many carrots and I think satsumas that my nose went orange.
Did it grow as well?
I got taken to A&E. My dad lifted me up and they said, don't worry, he's had too many carrots.
At least your eyesight was probably
And
quite
that's
good.
another boring story from Matthew Stadland. Let's crack on, guys, before our audience falls to sleep. Reem, should humans who identify as llamas be treated with respect?
No.
Matthew?
Yes.
You never fail to disappoint, do you? Matthew, should the UK take Gazan refugees?
Yes.
Reem?
Yes.
Number 3, Reem, is Starmer winning at PMQs?
No.
Ooh, Matthew.
Yes.
Number 4, Matthew, will Labour grow the economy?
Yes.
He said that with a straight llama face, didn't he? Reem?
No.
And 5th and final question, is it acceptable, Reem, for Reem Ibrahim to be late to record this show?
No.
Rude. Matthew?
No.
It's 5-all. We're not going to go for a tie break because
I'm really sorry.
It's not good enough, is it?
Blame Sadiq Khan and the tubes.
The tube.
Let's have a penalty shootout.
Penalty shootout. Shall we have a penalty shootout?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
Got you then. OK, what can we think of? A good question. You think of a question, Reem.
Do you think that this Labour government knows what they're doing when they're managing the economy?
Yes. Do you think... That was my question.
No. You said yes, do you?
No, because it was my.
I think Rima's the winner this week.
But she hasn't had another question.
Whoa. Wait,
this is outrageous.
The quizmaster's decision is final. You should have waited for a prompt, Matthew.
Would you like to hear my
know the rules?
question?
No, not at all. And that's enough. It's a great debate. Matthew, you've lost again. I think that's the second one on the trot. I'm delighted with this. Anyway, we've got Amher Khan coming up next. He's a doctor and a DNA specialist. Do not go away.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
I'm here in M. Manzi's, which is now the oldest surviving pie and eel shop in London. It's been open since 1892, and as you said in the intro there, it's really sort of a dying breed. One of the sister sites of this shop, the distant relative, owned one of their own other shops in Deptford, and that closed on Saturday for the very last time. They've been open for over 100 years. So you clearly see that there's a declining, not necessarily a declining interest, that's the wrong way of putting it, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as it used to be. This was a staple of the East End, and it's now gone from about 300 shops in the Victorian times to under 40 now, and it's declining further and further. Now, also, a couple of months ago, I was in Basildon talking about a similar story with Richard Holden, trying to create a protected status for pie and mash to prevent sort of copycats from stealing the recipe and making it less authentic. So that is ongoing. There's clearly interest in it, and tourists enjoy coming in here. Hopefully, I'll get one of my own pies shortly and have another taste. But it would be a shame to see this go. It's not just about the pie and the taste and the flavour, which is fantastic. It's also about history and community. A lot of people come in here as regulars, so we're just shining a light on a crucial part of London's historic economy. It's a bit of good fun, and it certainly tastes very good as well. Demographics have changed, yeah, and actually a lot of the ownership, the people who would run these shops traditionally over the last few decades are moving out towards the west, they're moving towards Kent, they're moving towards Sussex, so there are demographic changes, and no doubt that is influencing it as well. And as I say, it's important to do stories like this just to remind people of London's history and why it's important to support these local businesses.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
That's time for last orders at the bar. I've got a very special guest on the show today, Dr. Llama Khan. Nice to meet you, mate.
Lovely to meet you.
We've been chatting before we did this, actually, and I don't know what to talk about because you seem to be such an expert on a whole range of things. But let's start from the beginning, Llama. Getting into medicine at a very early age. You had an interest when you were really, really young, didn't you?
I did. I decided to go to medicine when I was 8. And that was based on the stories my father used to tell me about my grandfather, who I never met, because my grandfather died when he was 11.
Yeah.
And he was in the military, and he was stationed up in the Himalayas, and he was a doctor in the military. And not only did he serve in the military, but he also served his patients. And he served them to the degree where he would go out and he'd take them supplies, and he'd really look after them and make sure that they were not just well, but could live and survive. And it was on a day when he was out there helping his patients. There was a storm up in the Himalayas.
Wow.
And he was out there taking blankets and clothes and food up to them. And on the way back, as he was coming down the Himalayas, there was a landslide which took his Jeep over the edge. and he perished in that. So he gave his life to his service. And it was these stories about my grandfather, what he did and how he helped people, that really inspired me to follow in his footsteps. Not necessarily to go into the military, but to go into medicine.
But he's left a wonderful legacy, because fast forward, you came to this country when you was 4, and you've studied medicine.
Yep.
And you do, we were talking earlier about DNA. You know, you're looking at DNA, looking at people's DNA. You can do profiles on people, predict. Well, you can actually say with some accuracy where they've lived in the past, what jobs they've done, and what medically may happen to them in the future.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, you know, over the last, I mean, we've been looking at the gene. There was a human genome project last century, which finished in, I think it was 2009 it finished.
Okay.
But the genetic research has been going on ever since. And what we've discovered is that, you know, by deciphering what's in the DNA, in the genes, and how we can influence the expression of those genes, we can actually change the way we live and how we are.
And would that save the health service money, do you think, doing it that way?
I think having that insight would. Yeah. And I think, you know, developing, you know, and what this gives us opportunities to do is to profile people. So if we can profile people uniquely and individually, we can look at their individual needs for nutrition, for exercise, for how they live, and what conditions they're prone to. And what's written in your genes isn't necessarily your future, it's which genes are expressed. And we're learning more and more about how we can change the expression of those genes.
So we hear a lot of people saying that obesity, because it's a big problem to the NHS, it costs us an absolute fortune, the health implications are massive. Is that all genetic? Can you pick that up in the DNA test?
Yeah, I mean, obesity is really due to hormonal and metabolic dysregulation, where our hormones and metabolism isn't working properly. And that is because certain genes are switched on and certain genes are switched off. So if we switch all the good, positive metabolic genes off and the negative metabolic pressure genes on, then we're going to start to develop obesity. And I think these medications now that people are using, like semaglutide, you know, these injections that they're having, they're actually a pharmacogenetic medication. And what they're doing is they're switching on the good genes and switching off the bad genes to a degree. And their effect then transcends just obesity. It sort of impacts on your sort of mental health, on your cardiological health, cardiovascular health, your sort of risks of cancer and diabetes and longevity.
Yeah.
So they have a much wider benefit.
Well, something that's, Armour, that's quite topical at the moment is assisted dying. We have a private members bill going through Parliament at the moment. It's currently at the committee stage, so they're getting witnessing so-called experts. I'm sort of flipped on this a little bit. I support the principle of assisted dying. What I don't support at the moment with the bill is they've taken away the judges. The judge was supposed to be involved in the decision-making process, which I thought provided an extra layer of safeguarding. But I'm not sure whether I trust the government or our health service to do this properly at the moment.
Yeah, there are lots of sort of questions, aren't there? There are questions about, you know, who makes that ultimate decision, the motivations behind that decision, if it's a family making it. I think there are lots of ethical issues. I mean, I've been in the National Health Service for a long time. I qualified in '86, and you know, I was in general practice for a long, long time, and I had very elderly patients. And my approach has always been not about, you know, we're going to die at some stage. Yeah. It's not, you know, when we choose to die, it's about how we choose our end of life. So I would turn that around a little bit, and I would much rather talk about supported end of life, where we support people. You know, we don't help them to die, because that puts us in a different mindset. We support the end of life. They're going to die, but let's keep them comfortable.
I guess the argument, I mean, a lot of the time, Armour, the argument is when we're talking about this, whether it's in Parliament or in a pub like this, we always think about elderly people in the 80s or 90s, end of life, maybe in a hospice, may have cancer, they're not going to get better. But when you flip that round and say to people, what if it's an 18-year-old kid?
Yeah.
Then their mindset all of a sudden changes.
It does. It does. And I think the whole thing about wellness and the whole thing about what we were talking about earlier, why do we want to know our blueprint? Why do we want to live better? You know, if we can fill that life that we have, you know, there are the number of years in your life and there's the amount of life in your years. And if we can extend that life in our years, have a better life and extend wellness and health, then our attitudes will change. Because if you have an 80-year-old who is more vital, they can do what they want to do without those stigmas that come with aging, without the stiffness, the inflammation, the slowing down, the dependency on medication. If we can free them of that, then I think that's something really worth working towards.
So quality of life.
Absolutely.
So let's check the quality of your pint pulling skills, Llama. You're behind the bar for a reason. Please pick up a pint pot. Any one of those there, that's him. This is the easiest draft beer to pull in the pub. I'll say that with a grin on my face. Just you've got 30 seconds to pull that tap back.
30 seconds.
Fill that pint pot up.
Okay.
And we'll know if pint pulling is in your DNA.
All right.
Could you actually tell them by studying somebody's DNA if they've pulled pints before or worked in the brewery?
I think we could tell if they've worked in a brewery, whether they've pulled pints or not.
I think without checking your DNA, Llama, and looking at the state of that, I can categorically state to GB News viewers that you have never worked in a pub or worked in a brewery. And if you want to plonk that on the bar...
I don't know if I could.
Mate,
it's a bit shameful.
You need to put it on, mate.
All right.
Only flakes spare.
It's got a lot of head.
Yeah, it's got a lot of head. But in this problem, obviously, you qualified in 1986. We have a big problem now with getting people through, encouraging people to study medicine. I think the funding's all wrong. I think we've got far too many people who want to be doctors and nurses in this country that are put off by the debt that they find themselves in at the end of it. I mean, if you was in front of the health secretary now and he was talking about recruitment to the NHS, what would you say to him?
It's a difficult one because when I came through hospital medicine and when I qualified, the whole camaraderie, the whole feeling was different.
Yeah.
You know, we were a team, and we would work overtime. We would hand over.
Yeah.
And I think what's changed is it's changed from being a vocation to being a job.
Yeah.
And a job is a 9 to 5. You go and do it for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, I did it because I wanted to do it, and a lot of my colleagues did. And I think recruiting, we should make it a vocation again.
Yeah.
We should create an environment which is not just about the patient, it's about the whole system.
Yeah.
Support.
I tell you what really bothers me, Llama, is when we say we will recruit the brightest and the best from all around the world. And I actually think, I look at places like Pakistan, India, the subcontinent, we're taking their most skillful people, brain draining these countries and bringing them over here when really we should be training our own and letting these other countries develop and keep their best people.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I also think we should have a unified health across the world, ultimately. That's what we should be working towards. There are things that India is really good at. I mean, way beyond what we can do. You know, they have a high risk, they have a high incidence of cataracts, they do a lot of eye surgery, their skills and their resources are really good with that. England is really good at what we do. America's good at what they do. And what we should do is focus on not the healthcare providers, but on the patient. And if we focus on the patient, get them the best, and have a unified health system where they can access everything, I think that's what we should be working towards.
Well, Llama, your skills quite clearly lay in the field of medicine, not in the field of pints.
It's getting better.
It's pathetic. I'll give you 3 out of 10. That's Llama Khan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on Lee Anderson's Real World. It's been another great show, great guests, more of the same next week on GB News. But coming up next, we've got State of the Nation.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed boiler repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm here with your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Through this weekend, I think Sunday's going to be the drier of the 2 days. That's because many of us are going to have some fairly wet weather pushing through as we go through tomorrow due to a frontal system that's already brought rain across parts of southwest England, Wales and Northern Ireland so far today, and it's going to continue to progress northeastwards overnight. That being said, not really reaching the far north of Scotland or the southeast where it's going to stay largely dry. With the rain, it is going to to be quite heavy at times across parts of Wales and the southwest, but as well as this, we do have the risk of some sleet, some snow, even a bit of freezing rain. Temperatures to start in the night are going to drop where we get some clear skies, so a touch of frost early on, but then it's going to turn a bit milder with some cloudier, wetter, milder weather pushing its way in. Taking a closer look first thing tomorrow morning across the southeast, largely dry but quite cloudy here, wetter further west, also quite a bit of rain across parts of Wales, northern England, and do watch out for some snow and some freezing rain leading to some icy patches if you're heading out tomorrow as well. Across Northern Ireland, the heaviest rain will have cleared through, and across Scotland, a bit of a west-east split across western parts, largely dry by around 8-9 o'clock, and there will be some glimmers of sunshine, but in the east it's cloudier with some outbreaks of rain, sleet and hill snow continuing. Then through the day we have a fairly wet picture across this kind of central slice of the country. To the far south, avoiding this, in fact across the southwest, things turning brighter later on, and further north-northwest, some glimmers of sunshine across some parts of Scotland. Temperatures are turning a bit milder from the west, but where you're stuck under the cloud with the rain, it is